Okay, so now we can turn our mind to improvisation. Now, this for me is such a fun track to improvise over. I absolutely love to play over this song. I just think it's so rich with potential and you can get into a real nice groove, create some cool ideas, and it's just amazing. So I hope and I'm sure that you'll feel the same way. Now, improvisational wise in terms of scales, I sort of touched on this earlier in the course, thinking about the musical context. Hendrix, as we know, is predominantly using the E minor pentatonic scale, and he's using the first shape of that as it appears here at the 12th fret. He chooses a couple of notes from the major pentatonic scale just to add a slightly different texture and a different feel to the solo. But minor is predominantly what he's doing, and he's not even really dipping out and using anything from the minor scale, which contains the additional couple of notes, nor is he using anything even from the blues scale. He's not targeting the blue note. So in the improvisation that I started this lesson with, I'm taking very much the same approach. I'm sticking in that box and I'm just trying to come up with as many different ideas as I can, think about those different ways of passing through the shape and navigating across it, and trying to take or keep the kind of heart of the solo through thinking about including ideas like double stops, those kind of cut bends, the string skipping ideas, some of those little movements that Hendrix does, moving from the bottom of the scale shape to the top, trying to keep those or just rework them. And so, I think that would be my first piece of advice when improvising here is, take the fundamental approach. This solo is all about getting as much as you can out of a single shape. And it happens to be the pentatonic shape, which is fundamental to us blues players and is probably the most played scale shape all over the globe. So it's not a bad one to get totally to grips with and to experiment with. And that is the key sort of aim of the game here, experimentation. What you saw in my intro solo was I took many of the ideas that Hendrix plays in the actual solo. So, sort of the double stop, that little slide idea between the 12th and the 14th fret on the G string, the kind of movement from the lowest, the bass strings of the scale to the top, the heavy vibrato, and some of those little kind of getting that little finger involved on the B string and thinking about combining that with the G string in interesting ways, executing those types of ideas. What I did there was I sort of took that and bent the two strings together. So combining that idea, but twisting it a little bit. So bending the G string whilst holding that 15th fret on the B string, to create a sort of different feel. And I would urge you to do the same thing. Take some of these little phrases that Hendrix plays, isolate them, and try to rework them. If Hendrix does a hammer-on, think if you could do a slide. If Hendrix chops the bend at the top, well, what does it sound like if you allow the bend to come down? If Hendrix executes a double stop between the G and the B strings, well, what happens if you execute a double stop somewhere else in the scale shape? How does that sound? You have the tools. If you have curiosity and if you dig, you have the tools to create a whole range of wonderful ideas. You don't need to go and know different scales or know pieces of theory. No, everything is here for you. All you need to do is look at the tabs, look at what you've already created in learning this solo, or what Hendrix created for us, and just try and then put your own twist on it. See what ideas you create. For sure, doing that approach will sort of lead you to create some very cool solos, and it will give you new material that you can use in a wide range of different musical contexts, because this first shape of the minor pentatonic scale is going to be one that you encounter a lot. So it's definitely going to help you in the future as well. Now, a couple of little technical points. One kind of key idea. This is a fast backing track, and the solo that I played was fast. I kind of stuck to what Hendrix was doing and, technically went for that kind of same level of speed. If you're not yet at that level, do not get carried away and kind of bulldozed, by the speed. A lot of players do that. They encounter a kind of punchy backing track or a punchy solo, and then they try and go for the same. And technically, if they can manage that and they can handle it, perfect. That's great. If not, you're going to end up playing sloppily. You're going to sacrifice all of those good little ideas that you've created and those good habits of precision and kind of playing the notes with clarity. And the whole thing is just going to sort of meld together in a bit of a mess. So to show you what I kind of mean here, I'm going to take things right down. I'm going to phrase in a much kind of sparser and slower way and show you how you could still create a really cool solo, by taking that same approach. I'm not going to play a full solo, but just a couple of phrases to show you what I mean. So, what we saw there was just a kind of much simpler solo, less technically challenging, but one which still was effective, and one which I would recommend you taking that approach if you're not yet at the point where you're able to play quite as fast as, the Hey Joe, the real solo. So that's kind of one key point. The second key point, and again, going back to that idea of experimentation, is that Hendrix obviously did stay in the first shape of the scale. However, we're in the E minor pentatonic framework. There are shapes that appear all over the neck. So if you're looking to kind of build confidence and fluidity moving across scale shapes and moving across scale shapes in a key that isn't A, which tends to be where we kind of all start and where many people get stuck, experiment with thinking about how you can move out of that first shape. Now, as I said, I do think there's a lot of value in sticking in that first shape. But hey, why not keep this Hey Joe song and solo in your repertoire for a long time and, explore and experiment with these different ideas? And in that vein, what we can do is we can just think about where the different pentatonic shapes appear on the fretboard and what we can do with them. So you've got the first shape here appearing at the 12th fret. Now, if you know how the pentatonic scales kind of framework works, that means you've got the 5th shape here, 4th shape here, 3rd shape, 2nd shape. And interestingly, and this is a really cool thing about the key of E or E minor, you have the first shape of the scale appearing in the open position. So we have the first shape an octave lower. So you have the scale shape that we've played in the song here. And you have the exact same scale shape appearing down here. And that is actually the kind of area where Hendrix opens the song. That is where the kind of central riff is based around, is down here, as are the guitar chords. So you can create a lot of cool ideas using that first shape, essentially repeating what you've done up here, but an octave lower. So, thinking about something like this. It sounds similar, but because it's in such a different part of the fretboard, it does have a different sort of feel and vibe to it. And that means that you can take a lot of the material that you created up here and experiment with it using the open position. This, by the way, is a big trick of Stevie Ray Vaughan, who often plays that kind of first shape using the open strings and creating, many of those open sort of string style licks. Ideas like that. You can do the exact same thing here. And if you want to really extend out your jam, I think that's quite a nice way of doing it, as well as challenging yourself to traverse across the fretboard. You kind of start in that first shape down here. You then move through the scale shapes across the fretboard, and then you arrive up at the first shape an octave higher, where Jimi Hendrix played it, for your kind of big, the big climax of the solo. So something like... So what I did then, what you could see there is starting down in that first shape and then moving, from the lower registers of the guitar back to where we kind of started and where Hendrix focused. That's just one example, but you can cut that in 1,000 different ways, using the shapes in different ways, moving between them differently, focusing your attention anywhere within that E minor pentatonic framework. The key of E major, E minor is one that is very common in the blues. It appears all the time, and a lot of guys like Stevie Ray Vaughan, off the top of my head, is one who uses it all the time. Hendrix as well. So if you're wanting to play in the style of those guys and get comfortable in a key that really appears a lot, going through this exercise, as in addition to focusing on that first shape, I think is really, really useful, as well as a lot of fun. And that concludes our sort of deep dive into Hey Joe. As I hope you've had a lot of fun going through this. I hope you've learned a lot. For me, it is a solo that is just so rich with technique and ideas and little things that we can take for ourselves. And that is the key theme here and in all of these future courses, is what can you learn beyond the notes? What can you learn from the techniques, from the approaches, from the scales they're using, and how can we take that and use it in our own playing? So if you've gained sort of familiarity and confidence with the first shape of the minor pentatonic scale, take some of the licks and ideas you've created in this fast kind of blues rock context and play it over one of the slow black backing tracks that I've linked below from the Blues Club. See how you can take those and change the tempo, change the feel, change the vibe. That, again, is another exercise to just consolidate this material and push you from a position where you're just playing other people's songs to making your own music. So, good luck. As always, let me know how you get on. Let me know if you've got any questions. I'm always around and happy to help. Otherwise, guys, have an amazing time practicing this, and I'll see you soon.